Okay, so this is how you create a simple double exposure in Photoshop. First of all, you'll need to open up Photoshop and then create a new document. So File, New, and choose International Paper, and then select A4. And you actually, depending on whether your image is portrait or landscape, you'll need to change the width and height around. I know that mine are landscape, so I know I want the dimensions to be 297 wide and 210 high so that it's in landscape proportion. And then I press OK. Then I'm going to open up one of my images, File, Open, and find the folder with my images in. Select my first image, and you'll see that this appears in a separate tab. So what I'm going to do is use the Move tool, select the image, drag it up onto my original document, and then back down into the middle of the page, like so. I'm going to open up my second image. I'm going to use the pylon image, open. Exactly the same, it's opened in another tab, so I'm going to use the Move tool and then drop it into the middle of my blank document. And you'll see that both of them are a little bit smaller, so I'm going to increase the size. Control T is the shortcut, and if you hold Shift whilst you pull, it means that the image will stay in proportion, and then press Enter when you're happy. And if I can no longer see the other image, so if I just turn off this layer and select the layer over here, I can do exactly the same. Control T and scale it up to the right size, and then press Enter. So I've now got my two layers on top of each other, and there's a few different ways that you can make a double exposure. One way is by changing the type of layer on the top. So if you go up to where it says normal at the moment, you can select multiply, and what this does is it takes out all of the light in the top image, and that creates a really interesting effect. So you can choose to save that version, but what you'll need to do in order to do that is go to Layer, Flatten Image, File, Save As, and then call that Multiply Double Exposure, and save it as a JPEG into your folder. Press OK. But there are other ways that you can do it that create different effects. So what you can do now is go to the History tab and go back in time one step, and what you'll see is that the image has layers in it again still, and so you can go back in time. In fact, you can do that in the History palette, go right back to here. Then you might want to try it a different way. So another way that you can do it is by changing the opacity. So the whole image, light and dark parts, will become slightly transparent. And that obviously creates a different effect depending on, as well, how far you go down with the slider. So again, you can flatten image, File, Save As, and you can call this one opacity double exposure, so you have two different types. If you want to experiment even further, you go back in time again, and this time you can swap the layers over and do the same. You could create multiply on this one and then see if it creates a different sort of effect, or going back to normal, changing the opacity, seeing if that has a different sort of effect. And of course you can do different versions where you move images around, scale them up, scale them down. One last experiment that you might wish to try is erasing some parts of the top layer. So you could do that by using the marquee tool. That could be a rectangle or a circle, whichever you prefer. I'm going to use a circle this time, and I'm going to hold Shift so I draw a perfect circle, and then I'm going to press the delete button. And what I see is in certain places on the top layer, you'll see that the bricks disappear and you can see just the pylon image underneath. And you can still change this opacity, so you can make that even less so that the circles are more subtle, or you can make it more so that they're really obvious. And there's a few examples of how to make double exposures.